Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year, and welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete Live Stream. I'm here with my friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Sunday evening. Mike, we want to get together, man. We got a lot to talk about tonight, a busy sports weekend as we head into the new year. We're going to be joined by our good friend, author J.D. Harris, who wrote the great book on Mike Tomlin, the outstanding coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Super Bowl winning coach who got his team back in the playoffs again. But before we get to Coach Tomlin and the NFL playoffs, hey, let's get caught up and check in with you. What's going on the West Coast, man, in the Bay Area?
Well, first and foremost, of course, our allegiance is to the greatest fraternity and or sorority in the history of the world. It's so nice to name it twice. Kappa Alpha Psi Phi Nu Pi.
I have to agree with you there, brother.
Right. So we just had our Founders Day. So this is still Founders Day weekend. So we have to do that. And, of course, we'll be talking about Mike Tomlin a little later, who's actually a noob himself. And then, of course, Kaepernick, who we talked about a lot. So a lot of those guys. And I had a good time in Oakland, as I did last year, where we got together, guys from the Bay Area and things like that. And we had a good time, being noobs. And
the thing about it, Mike, is so much history.
Right.
When you become a member of this great clan, the accomplishment of so many brothers who have paved the way for us to be here, sitting and talking to the viewers all over the country today, not only in athletics, but academics,
politics,
medicine. I mean, you name it, man. Yep. And it's really it's really kind of an emotional thing, and some people don't understand.
Right.
And I get that. If you're not a member, you wouldn't understand. So I can dig that. But for those of us who do, we understand what a special bond this is. You can go anywhere in the world and see a brother wearing that crimson and cream and know you got a friend and an ally. I mean, it's pretty good, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we actually, pay homage to some of our brothers that are on that Golden Shore, and for people that don't know, that passed away. So we mentioned, some of the luminaries, Tom Bradley, first mayor of Los Angeles, first white mayor of Los Angeles. And right now, Hakeem Jeffries, congressman.
Speaker of the House.
Minority, yeah, because of that. But hopefully he will flip it and become a majority. And then, so then, we talked about, some of the great athletes that we lost. We lost Bill Russell. They threw Bill Russell's name out there. Willie Davis, who was my boss, great Willie Davis, football star. And
University.
Yep. And then, of course, Gail Sayers, who was our athletic director momentarily. So a lot of history, as you said, sports, politics, medicine, everything. I mean, what about our football player, Myron Roll, that ended up becoming a physician after his football days?
Yeah. So, and the young brother from Florida. Yeah, that's the brother from Florida State that played for University of Tennessee. I mean, not the University of Tennessee, but the Tennessee Titans. Yeah. Outstanding. Hey, but I want to. You're right there in the Bay Area where the Golden State Warriors reside, man. And when I look at the standings, and I see them at 17 and 18 in the 10th spot. I know they're getting Draymond Green back. But is this run for this team over with this current group of Steph and Clay and Draymond?
I mean, the thing about it is that when you think about it, people thought it was over after KD left. So after that, when they lost to Toronto and the KD left, they said, "Oh yeah, that's it." And somehow, and then of course, the following year, Lakers won. Of course, people want to delegitimize it by saying it was in the bubble. But then they come back and win it in the Bucks won, and then they won it in 22, and people said, "Where'd that come from?" Because especially when Boston was the overwhelming favorite, but they found a way to do it. So I guess as long as they have a guy that can, get you 30 points in about 5 minutes, as long as you got that kind of guy, that kind of torch right there, you still have a chance. And then if you really think about it, that Boston series, Boston looked like they were in control until Draymond started doing his antics, and it looked like it just totally discombobulated Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They just didn't seem the same after that. Jason was really a disappointment in that finals, and I think he really does want to redeem himself on that. But so it could be, but I don't want to give them their last rites yet because
Chris Paul is out. Chris Paul is out now. He's got a fractured wrist.
Yeah, Peyton.
Chris Paul.
Oh, Chris Paul, right. And Gary Payton Jr. is hurt again too.
Yeah.
Or Gary Payton II.
I'm reading now. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. But my thing with Mike, even when everybody's there, they just aren't big enough. They don't have enough size. To me, you see them more than I do.
Right.
To compete. I mean, they can shoot the ball and all that, but you got to deal with the Joker, Oklahoma City, their young team, if they got length.
Right. Did you see how they just lost to Denver with Joker in that bank shot 3 at the buzzer?
Yeah.
So like I said, though, as long as they could shoot like that, even though Clay looks like a shell of himself, but if they get hot at the right time, they can do anything. And that was the thing that a lot of people were worried about back in 2001 when the Bucks and the Sixers had that Eastern Conference fight. And the Lakers were more worried about the Bucks than the Sixers because the way the Bucks could shoot the 3 with Ray, Dog, even Sam could hit a couple threes, and Tim Thomas. So, and they actually swept the Lakers that year. So that's the thing about it, is that if you can shoot well, you got a chance at any point. And that's the thing that kind of keeps hope alive for the Warriors, is that the way they can shoot, when they really get it cooking, they can beat anybody if that happens. But if they're getting torched on defense, which is when Draymond comes in, where he does a lot of physicality and mental intimidation and all that, but also plays great defense in the low post. So that's the part that really helped them, is that they were able to play good defense. Even having JaVale McGee helped a lot. Blocking shots. So they've had some low post help, and even my little young homie Looney's been doing some great undersized work for getting rebounds. Look what he did to Sacramento. He had 20 plus rebounds against them, and I asked Mike Brown about that. I said, how huge was that Draymond got over 20 points and Looney got over 20-something rebounds? And that's what turned that series around, because it was expected that Sacramento was going to beat them last year, but when those two had those type of stats, that's what did it. And then of course Steph sealed the deal when he got that 50 to end it all. So that's what I'm saying. As long as they have that weapon in the background, they got a puncher's chance, to use a boxing metaphor.
Man, the West looks, when I look at those standings, man, I'm not used to seeing Minnesota sitting at the top of the West.
Right.
Nor am I used to seeing Oklahoma City. Nor am I used to seeing the Lakers at 11 and Golden State at 12. But we'll be heading into the trade deadlines. So really, it's hard to evaluate until
Right,
we see
exactly.
who's going to make some moves. The Lakers aren't just going to sit there without trying to make some moves. They've lost 4 straight, and they've struggled since they won the in-season tournament. So that's going to be interesting. LeBron's going to play well. You hope Anthony Davis stays healthy, and he's going to play well most of the time. It's going to be who they put around those two guys that's going to play well on a consistent basis. And over in the East, and I see our guest for the hours is here. We're going to bring him on in a couple of minutes. Boston, man, 28-7, and they've opened up a 4-game lead in a loss column over Milwaukee. And man, you see Giannis talking about the equipment manager needs to wash our clothes better.
Like I said,
what is that, man?
Remember he was the lovable foreign guy, the lovable Greek freak. But once again, remember when he made that statement last year, I don't believe in failure because you're not addressing what you guys are doing. Besides that 21 championship, you guys have underachieved every year that you've become a star. Even in the bubble, they were expected to win that one. And I know that they had a lot of onus on them about the whole George Floyd situation and all the other things that were going on. And then the brother from Kenosha that got shot. So it was a lot going on, and being that they were the local team in Milwaukee near Kenosha, that they basically were going through the whole thing. Should we protest and not play? So there's a lot of that going on, and I think they got caught up in that. And then of course,
let me read what he was saying, just so I don't take this out of context. After they lost to the Rockets 112-108, he said, we have to be better. We have to play better. We have to defend better. We have to trust one another better. We have to be coached better, every single thing. Everybody has to be better. Everybody. It starts from the equipment manager. He has to wash our clothes better. The bench has to be better. The leaders of the team have to be more vocal. We have to make more shots. We have to defend better. We have to come and have better strategy. Every single person in the Bucks organization simply has to be better. So maybe he should use some throw some OxyClean in there with the Tide, man. Maybe.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't say Marcus Johnson needs to be better because he's a color commentator.
You got to announce better. I'm gonna bring our guest in because this guy is one of the great writers we have in the world of sports, and spent years covering the NBA. And
let's not forget, when I was covering the Bucks, he was with the Pistons. So it goes back full circle.
Yeah, and I did want to get your take on this. Maybe some bleach. I don't know, some chlorine. What did you think about that situation? And I think, JD, really the problem in Milwaukee, they're not very good defensively. Their best defensive player is now playing defense with the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, that trade, they gave up a lot. And they lost some glue and some chemistry that they had. And Mr. Lillard, Dame, or whatever you want to call him, he's a great scorer. He's older, was never known as a great defender. And those kind of things that you just mentioned are showing up a little bit. It's not always about scoring the most points. It's sometimes about stopping the other guy when you need to stop him. And Giannis, used to be an innocent, wide-eyed international kid who's now talking about cleaning uniforms better. Really?
Come on, bro.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about that.
Yeah.
Man, back in the day, ask Wilt Chamberlain and all those guys, man, they had to clean their own uniforms.
Yeah.
They did. They had to clean their uniforms on the road.
Right. And then go hop on a commercial flight with
commercial bus.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
He cramped up and everything. Yeah. I mean, and the thing about it though, like I've talked to Giannis a couple times when they've come out here. But of course, I covered the Bucks from 93 when I moved back to Wisconsin up until I left here. Matter of fact, that's the Eastern Conference final I was talking about when they played the Sixers. And then when I used to talk to David Aldridge and all of those guys were talking about that, you know what? The NBA would rather have that Philadelphia market in the finals than the Milwaukee market. I said, yeah, but they have one player. I said, the Bucks got Dog, Ray, Sam, and Tim Thomas coming off the bench. I would rather see that. And plus the Bucks were 8-0 against the top 4 teams in the Western Conference. And the thing about it is that people forget that the Sixers were very close to being eliminated early if the graduate Vince Carter hits that 3 from the corner. He took a lot of scrutiny because he looked like a mama's boy. He said, my mom wants to watch me walk across the stage, and people were like, dude, you need to concentrate on this game. This is big. This is the Sixers. And then of course, my thing was, I said, the only way you're gonna shut people up, you gotta go off and y'all gotta win. And he missed that 3, and people still rip on him about that now. About, dude, what was your focus? I mean, yeah, I know you're a proud graduate, but you're in a different realm now, and you can accept that trophy. Accept that degree some other type of way, or have your mother accept it for you. So, that's how close they were to it being a different scenario where the Bucks having the home court, because then it comes out that Game 7. Mysteriously, Stu Jackson, a former Wisconsin Badger coach, says, that Scott Williams flagrant foul on Allen Iverson, I think it needs to be upgraded. So let's upgrade it right before Game 7. And guess what, Scott? You can't go to Philly. Don't even get on the bus. Don't even get on the plane. You're not going to Philly. Changed a lot in that Game 7. So there was a lot of stuff going on back then. And then, like I said, with the way the Bucks had their moments. So that was their biggest moment during that era. Not only that one, but the year before when they lost to the Indiana Pacers. They couldn't rebound the ball. Travis Best got 2 attempts to hit a 3, and that's how they lost. They should have advanced, and Indiana ended up in the finals. That could have easily been the Bucks 2 years in a row. And I told them before I moved out here, I said, dude, that window was the best opportunity I've seen with the Bucks since I've been an adult. I mean, Marcus Johnson, all those guys had good teams back in the 80s, but that was the best one of the team I covered until the Giannis championship.
I mean,
they're 20 years later.
They're still capable now. I mean, we're talking about in 2010,
right?
But they definitely got some issues that they're going to have to address, and it needs to start on the defensive end, because even with all the offense we see in the NBA today, come playoff times, it's going to really tighten down when these teams are seeing each other every other night or whatever it may be, and are going to really be able to dig into some tendencies, and you're going to have to guard people. And as John was saying, that's a shortcoming of Dame, and so we'll see how they play out. Boston looks strong, but JD, I want to get you on, man, and talk about my man is in the playoff again, and you just wrote a great book about Mike Tomlin, the soul of a football coach, and it is great timing to see the Steelers, who many people have left for dead.
Yep.
And man, I read a lot about that team because I've never seen a coach so successful catch so much hell from the fans and the media in the Pittsburgh area.
I've been laughing since I did watch the the Titans game today, and they beat Jacksonville, which meant that the Steelers were going to get in there. And I was laughing because I was just laughing. I was thinking about some of the media members in Pittsburgh now who are throwing their hands up in frustration. And they don't really know what to write now, because the narrative a month or so ago was that Mike Tomlin had outlived his usefulness. The players they don't listen to him anymore. He doesn't know what he's doing. He hasn't won a playoff. He hasn't been in the playoffs. He hasn't won a playoff game. Get rid of him. Time to go. So now what do you so I know they were sitting there, man, they were like, oh, no, please don't let him win. Now what do you write? Well, they're probably going to lose in the first round. Big deal. And the more I look at it, I just think that the media and fans in Pittsburgh are just ridiculously spoiled. They haven't had a losing season since in like 20 years, regardless of whether it was Mike Tomlin or Bill Cowher. And I think so people are like, well, 10-7, that's not good enough. Well, you're not going to win a Super Bowl every year. It ain't going to happen. I don't care who it is. But I think sometimes it's just to the point of being ridiculous. They've never had a rebuild, a real rebuild.
Right.
They lucked out the one year when they got Ben Roethlisberger. And they've never been able to just go down and say, you know what? We're going to get another quarterback. We're going to get some linemen. They pretty much had to put it together and piece it together. And, this guy leaves. Okay, we piece this guy. I mean, look at this year. Eric Rowe playing safety, was a pretty good play with New England, but they literally took him off the scrap heap. A linebacker they just picked up who had retired. They just brought him back. These guys are starting now. And I think they said during the 3-game winning streak, they were getting up like 14 points a game. Now you can tell me, okay, they played against the Ravens B team. They didn't play against, Joe Burrow and Cincinnati. Man, I don't really care. They won the games. They could have easily lost any of those games. They won them.
Yeah.
They've actually played the best football. And Mike Tomlin, I think, if he didn't make the quarterback change, they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and he's playing with a backup quarterback.
Yeah,
right?
Third string. Technically, the third string quarterback.
Right. So, and man, you play who's in front of you, and everybody gets injuries. Nobody feels sorry for you. I am cheering for that dude, man, and the Steelers, and I'm like you. I just think it's hilarious. I mean, what are you going to say? I mean,
right.
think about the people in Jacksonville.
Right.
This dude was 8-3. Yep. I saw a graphic.
They beat the Steelers. They beat the Steelers during that time.
Yeah,
they beat the Steelers in the game.
4 weeks ago, or maybe 5 weeks ago, their chances of making the playoffs was 96%, and they're going to be watching with us next weekend.
Yeah.
You know what was really funny today? Tomlin's biggest hater, Terry Bradshaw, he begrudgingly said, "Glad for the Steelers." Didn't even mention Tomlin's name.
No, he never do.
And then he was upset about how Jacksonville fell apart. But I just noticed that he said, "Yeah, I'm happy for the Steelers," but he really didn't want to, and he definitely didn't want to give Tomlin credit. And they never acknowledged that he's never had a losing season. They'll always brush that off as, well, that's only because of this and that and this and that. And it's like, think about it. Not only did he have Coach Ben when, Ben was starting to lose his pizzazz, but Ben was being a curmudgeon. Ben was being a jerk, really, with him. Remember the whole pandemic scenario when the one player didn't no, I'm sorry. The pandemic was one thing, but then also when the Kaepernick scenario, when the one player said, "I'm a serviceman, so I got
the alignment." Yeah.
Everybody else wanted to stay in the locker room, and then he said, "I don't know how to feel about this." I said, "Dude, will you stop being anti your coach? I mean, you would have never done that with Cowher. Why are you gonna sit there and be basically quasi disrespectful that you don't really respect this brother coaching you, whereas Cowher was like, in your face, spitting on you and everything, but oh my gosh, he's the greatest coach we ever had." So it's a joke.
Tomlin's whole career has been putting out fires. I mean, you talk about Ben. I mean, they were back-to-back years as I really detail in the book, he was being charged with sexual assault.
Yeah, exactly.
So they opened up the press conferences at the beginning of the training camp. Everybody's got, so he dealt with that back-to-back years. The one year they went to the Super Bowl when that happened, he went with like Charlie Batch and two or three different. I think Leftwich played one game. And there was another brother played quarterback, and somehow they came out of those 4 games 3-1. He has a winning record when Ben was out with the backup quarterback throughout his career. Mm-hmm. He has an over 500 record. So you can say what you want. He's not enough this. He's not enough that. He's never. I mean, like I wrote in the book, when they lose, it's his fault. When they win, they won. Like Terry Bradshaw said today. I mean, I think at this point in his game, he doesn't. But he's like whatever. It doesn't matter what I do or what I've done. I've won with one of the greatest defenses ever. I won a Super Bowl. We had some of the most prolific offenses ever. They say he's not an offensive coach. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to be an offensive coach when you got Duck Hodges as your quarterback. But he had some prolific offenses when he had those weapons.
Yeah, when he had.
And he basically works with what he's got.
Yeah,
and he was a receiver.
Hey,
he played offense.
JD, is this because man, think about when you think about the history of Pittsburgh's professional sports, of course, mainly football and baseball in terms of African Americans. You look at the great Pittsburgh teams of the 70s, the Pirates were the first team to have all 9 black starters on the field. The Steelers started Joe Gilliam in 1974. But is some of this animus tinged in racism?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, coach is different. I'll talk, John Wooten, who's really played a big role in the book, and I talked to him quite a bit. And he talks about it because he's been pushing forever to get more and more black coaches. And the league, he said, you got black quarterbacks was a hurdle. Cleared that hurdle. But he said, still different. Coaches is different. In the NFL, the coach is the power figure. Other than Dallas, we got Jerry Jones in front of everything. The coach is the figure of he is the face of the franchise. He is the power figure. And in a city like Pittsburgh, he started out, the fans and media didn't want him. The guys that they wanted, Russ Grimm and Ken Wisenhunt, I'll just leave it at that. And not to disparage either one of them. They were both good coaches in their own time, but I'll just leave it at that. And so it's always been that. It's just been, I think when he was younger, he figured in time, it would happen. I think now he just realized it is what it is. It's not going to change. They win. If they lose their playoff game against whoever they play, everybody's going to say, well, see, we told you they really weren't that good and blah, blah, blah. And just move on to another day. But if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm really excited because they have a nucleus of young players on offense. I'll tell you, George, let me tell you something. Pickens is the next superstar. Yeah. This guy in an offense that really didn't throw the ball to him, averaged almost 20. I think he's second in the league in yards per reception, has over 1,000 yards receiving, averages almost 20 yards a catch. Just imagine when they finally get this offense together with whoever the quarterback is going to be. This dude he's almost unstoppable, unguardable. Solid running game. And when they get their pieces back on defense healthy, I don't think people realize how many injuries they have on defense. Linebackers, inside linebackers have been devastated. The defensive backfield has been devastated. And they're somehow in the playoffs. Yeah, their best player went down.
Hey, JD, when the season started, and Mike and I, we talked about it before, and I think we may have talked about it with you when you visited with us, talking about your great book, Tomlin, The Soul of a Football Coach. When this season started, you had 16 black quarterbacks starting in the NFL. And when the MVP vote comes out, whenever it does, it is no question that Lamar Jackson will be the MVP of the league. And you go back to the humble beginnings where we had these pioneers that from Joe Gilliam and Marlon Briscoe all the way up to where we are now. How do you view that progression?
Oh, I mean, I think it's wonderful. I'm optimistic, but until he wins that trophy, I'm gonna be a little. I want that to happen really badly.
Who they gonna give it to, Diddy?
I'm also
Purdy.
a realist.
They'll try to give it to Purdy.
Realist.
They'll try to give it to Purdy.
I'm also a realist, and I expect him to win it, but if he doesn't win it, I'm not going to be shocked.
Wait, how you gonna give it to Purdy? He kicked Purdy's ass.
Yeah, but
and Christian McCaffrey played in that game too.
I know, and that's why I was. See, whenever they have a scenario like that, when you got two players that are up for MVP on the same team, I'm like, how could either one of them win then? Because you could say, well, what Purdy's doing is predicated by what CMC is doing, and vice versa. So, but that's a better story. You know how American storytellers are, at least certain versions of them. You get this kid, Mr. Irrelevant, and look at all the odds he went through. And he actually got hurt last year, and he comes back from that injury and didn't miss a beat. But yet the other quarterback on your team also got hurt last year, and he got no chance to come back from his injury. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sure. So that's what I'm saying about the double standards and all that. And then
it's never going to change. I think the black quarterback narrative has gotten a lot better. Obviously, it's better than you look at what there were 3 black quarterbacks taken in the first 5 picks. Your first quarterback probably will be black this year's draft, and there'll be 2 or 3 others in the first round. So that mountain has been climbed, but now you got to get to the next part. The mental issue is still there with people. They just, Lamar Jackson is just the Duke. He doesn't even run anymore. He stands in the pocket. He runs now just to escape. Where before he used to talk about the evolution of a player, how his game has changed. He's in the pocket. He stays in the pocket, but he kills teams because they're scared. Because if the pocket collapses and the secondary is defending, then that's when he'll take off. As opposed to just looks at his first read and they would run. They don't do that anymore. And he's a very accurate passer.
Yes. And you know what is stunning? He has never lost a game to an NFC.
No, he has one loss.
He has lost one?
Yes, I think he's 20-1 now.
Okay.
After they beat the 49ers, he was 20-1.
Okay. But and I know why, man. If you don't see this cat every week, bro, you ain't got a chance.
And ironically, you know who plays him better than anybody, right? You know who that is.
Steelers.
Right? He's only beat them one time, I think. Now, granted, he didn't play this time, and I think last year the second time he was hurt. But they know. I mean, because they're in the conference in the division, they know how to play him. He's never really had like a monster game against them. But I think it goes back to familiarity, and they're able to really scheme some really good things. And the one thing we saw in the game yesterday, Steelers are a very physical team, and the league has kind of gotten away from that. You got to pass the ball all the time. The Steelers, they were like pile driving guys yesterday as far as the running game, and that's what Mike Tomlin wants to do. He plays the field position game, and now with the new quarterback Mason Rudolph, they're getting just enough big plays in the passing game. They've had some big explosive passing plays the last 3 weeks that they hadn't had all year. So that threat is there now. You start playing them for the run, and they're able to get one of those receivers open, and they'll hit you with a big play right now. And Mason Rudolph has proven to be a very accurate passer, given this chance when Kenny Pickett went down. And I'm pretty optimistic that he'll remain on the bench, which I think is where he should be until next year. You got to ride the hot hand right now.
Well, let me ask you this question, though.
Mike, let me just jump in here and just get everybody caught up. You're watching the African-American Athlete live stream with Rickey Hampton and Michael Roberson. We're joined by J.D. Harris, the author of the great book on Mike Tomlin, Soul of a Football Coach. And JD, they can go just about anywhere and pick that book up, right?
Yeah, you can go, all Amazon, all things online, Barnes and Noble, a lot of African American bookstores around the country are carrying it. You go to their websites. I always try to push that, but yeah, it's been doing well. I think the playoff push, I think, will help sales a little bit. I think people who maybe don't know about the book will maybe be more curious about this guy now, especially with the way the season went. And who is this guy, and how is he able to do these things? And maybe reading his story will give people a little bit better feel for who this guy is. This is not a fluke. What happened? I mean, it's kind of crazy that Jacksonville lost, but you know what? The Steelers had to go out and win their last 3 games. If they lost any of those games, they were done.
Yeah.
And somehow, some way, they're in the playoffs.
And after Mike's comment, I want to come back and ask you how all this came about and what prompted you to address Coach Tomlin as a topic. Go ahead, Mike.
All right. So what if something crazy happens when their draft comes up and Penix Jr. is available, or the Bears say, you know what, we'll trade you Fields for some type of compensation. So you think they would actually go after one of those quarterbacks, or are they comfortable with whom they're dealing with now?
That's a good question. I mean, the one difference I see in the Steelers now and when I was covering them is they used to draft the best player. I remember the year they drafted Lawrence Timmons, my first draft there.
Yeah.
And I remember I scooped the whole media market on that. And it was funny because nobody really wanted to give me props for it, but because I was a new guy. But
I wonder why, JD.
And he was a linebacker, and they had a lot of linebackers. But back then, they considered him the best player, and that's what they used to do. They used to just draft, and their depth at one time was just so incredible. Guy went down, they had another guy that could step right in. What they've done the last few drafts, especially when you look at Kenny Pickett, they need the quarterback, Big Ben. I mean, to me, he was drafted too high, Kenny Pickett. Yeah. You got to remember, the guy was a 5th-year senior, and he's still struggling reading defenses, which is kind of, to me, very concerning because he's like a veteran-type college quarterback. He's not a guy that played 1 or 2 years. If he's still struggling with that aspect of his game, and he's an older quarterback, even though he's young, that's a concern to me. Whether or not he'll be able to climb that hurdle, I don't know. He's got to learn how to be comfortable in the pocket. He is not comfortable in the pocket. He panics. He throws the ball out the way. He doesn't see his other receivers. And that's one thing Mason Rudolph has shown is that he will stay in the pocket. He'll take the hit, and he'll deliver an accurate pass. And that's what the offense had been missing all year. I think they would – if a Penix, somebody like that dropped to them in the draft, I mean, that's talent that you can't overlook. That's unique talent that even at the end of the day, you could, if you had to trade, you could get some value for that. I mean, I think if that kind of talent dropped to them, yeah, I think they would go for that. I see them maybe going for another lineman or something like that. But yeah, if that type of player, that type of quarterback somehow fell to them, yeah, I would not be shocked at all to see them take him. And then Penix just blew me away last week. I mean, he's just his accuracy and his arm strength is just incredible.
I mean, 40, 50-yard throws just right. You got to catch it. He's throwing it so you can't even drop it. He's throwing it so well. But man, that's a good point, Mike. I tell you, the kid in Chicago, Justin Fields, under somebody like Tomlin, I believe he would take that kid's game to another level because, our good friend Larry Lee, the former vice president of the Lions, has always talked about, and Larry grew up working with Kevin
Colbert?
Kevin Colbert,
before
he went to Pittsburgh. And Larry always believed that there was an edge that Black coaches have. It's not that a white coach can't relate to a player, but it is something different. I don't know if you guys remember when the Cavaliers won the NBA title, Tyronn Lue came over
Right.
and took the job from Black.
Mm-hmm.
And LeBron was kind of saying, man, Tyrone and I, we know what it was to be hungry, for our families to struggle, that connection that Black coaches can have with athletes can sometimes help elevate them. And man, I think that's all Justin Fields is is missing. And I got that from speaking with Larry. He believes that, and yeah, I'm with him on that. And Tomlin definitely has it, because you can see the way the guys react to him
It's
on
not
the
just Black players with Tomlin. And I talk about this,
show.
in the early part of the book. He relates to everybody. There's a
Yeah,
lot of former white players that T.J. Watt just swears by him. He doesn't want to play for anybody else. A lot of his white players through the years. I mean, he just has this bond with his players. I mean, I could imagine. So I think the Steelers, other players that they have on offense, if you have the receivers that they have, the running backs that they have, and you put a Justin Fields in there, who do you focus on?
yeah,
I mean, because he's a threat to run, right?
yeah,
So they're gonna stack the line. If they don't, anytime you have a 14 and 1-on-1, he can pretty much can beat any 1-on-1 coverage.
yeah.
The wide
It's a wrap.
receivers. So they would be, to me, incredibly dangerous defensively, because they have underrated offensive skill players. They really are. They just haven't really been showcased in the offense that they've been running.
You got to have that quarterback in today's game. Hey, JD, I want to talk about, get both of you guys' thoughts on the playoffs. But before we go there, just what prompted you to address Tomlin as a subject matter for a book?
Yeah, that was a good question. I wanted to do a book on the Steelers, and my editor, Jason Katzman, he brought Tomlin's name up, and I really hadn't really thought about him. I knew about him. I covered him. I guess it was just because he's such a low key guy. You really could never really get a grasp for him. And then I researched and saw that there was no book on him, and I really found that hard to believe. I figured, the guy's won a Super Bowl. Everybody talks about him, right? He's got to have a book or two, right? No, he doesn't. And I felt like, at the end of the day, as hokey as this sounds, I think he deserved a book. I
Yeah.
think his career, it said that he deserves a book. Some of the sports books that have been written about some of these coaches and people out there that have had books written about them. How does this guy not have a book written about him? And I feel like in Pittsburgh, with the Pittsburgh media the way I know it to be, if I hadn't written a book, he may not have ever written a book about him. And I just felt like his career, and last year was an interesting year when I was trying to decide, because they were 2-6. And, if you think it was bad this year, what the media was saying, he had a first year quarterback. He was trying to kind of wean into the lineup. Mitch Trubisky, who every time I see Mitch Trubisky, I think about Patrick Mahomes. This is the guy they took ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Wow.
And so that's what he was stuck with. And he made a decision, like he did this year when he changed quarterbacks. He finally said, okay, I'm going with the rookie. And the difference between me, Mitch Trubisky, and Kenny Pickett last year was that Trubisky is like a turnover machine. And
Right.
Pickett was not turning the ball over. And he continued that this year. He was not turning the ball over, but he wasn't really putting a lot of points on the board. And his indecision and his mistakes was really hurting the team, especially as the injuries started to pile up on defense. So I felt like last year, watching and observing how that season ended up, it really just told me something about him. I said, you know what? We need to write about this guy. How he got out of last year, and how, despite the success that he's had, in my introduction, like this, I talk about how last year ended, but I say it's not enough. It won't be enough, and the challenge will continue. not knowing what this challenge is going to be like this year. And it's been pretty prophetic that despite the success, nobody really seems to care about that in Pittsburgh. And that's basically how the season is going. No matter what you do, we're going to find something to counter it. And that's kind of what he's endured his whole time as the head coach with the Steelers.
All right.
But I will say this. I give the Rooneys, initially Dan Rooney and now Art Rooney, I give them all the credit in the world. They didn't have to hire him. They had already interviewed 2 minority candidates as far as the Rooney Rule is concerned. There was something about Mike Tomlin that Dan Rooney saw. And there's been, he's had back-to-back 8-8 seasons when he didn't make the playoffs. There's been ample opportunity to let him go. Whatever reason, they didn't do it. They haven't done it. So I give the Steelers ownership unbelievable amount of credit. I think they're like one of a kind as far as the NFL is concerned. Yeah. They stand alone. And I give them all the credit in the world for having faith in him, hiring him in the first place. And then, after the everything had worn off, after the luster had worn off, he could have had his 6-7 year. Oh yeah, okay, we did our thing, but they didn't. They stayed with him.
Yeah.
Guess what? They treated him the way teams treat white coaches. Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Novel concept, right? But they
except
did.
for their legendary players taking shots at them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that just drives me crazy. Let me give you a hypothetical situation. So it wouldn't be exactly 50 years ago. It'd be 49 years ago. Let's say the 74 season, and let's say you can go back in time and be your age or maybe a little younger. And how would you write about that time where you had Swan and all those guys coming in and starting to become a big team? But the Steelers started Joe Gilliam in the beginning of that season, and he played 6 games, 4-1-1. And then after the Raider loss, allegedly and reportedly, Bradshaw went over there and complained to Al Davis, and Al said, "Look, I'll take care of it." And next thing you know, Joe Gilliam's on the bench with all kind of excuses to say that's why he's there. So what would you be? What do you think you would your mindset would have been as a writer during that time period, which I know had been tough in the early 70s?
Yeah, well, I think they're loyal to their. I mean, that's why you see with Kenny Pickett. Why they stick with him, the first round pick. Terry Bradshaw was the first round pick, the number 1 pick in that draft, whatever year it was. I think that has something to do with it. I've heard a lot of stories and even people like Joe Green have come out and said it, that he was dealing with some demons, and it was happening around that time. Now, supposedly that was impacting what was happening on the field. I wasn't there, I don't know, but I know Joe Green came out and said, "Hey, it didn't have anything to do with race. It had stuff to do with other things." I'll have to leave that and take his word for it because I wasn't.
Yeah, I've heard those same things.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'll put it to you this way. I think they wouldn't even have put him in there in the first place. I don't think. But Joe had demons, and I don't. Yeah. Can you imagine the pressure that he was dealing with at that time as a black quarterback when they weren't playing? And he's playing for this team that, went to Super Bowls, right? And whatever demons he was dealing with, I think that might have been helping him deal with those demons. I mean, he just didn't handle it well. What kind of support system did a black athlete have in Pittsburgh in 1970? You know what I mean? If you look at all the different things that were going on, I'm not making excuses, but I think they gave him an opportunity. I think, things started happening. There's probably pressure because Bradshaw is a first-round pick, and you add all those things together, probably the fans were going crazy. They're crazy now, so I can only imagine what they were like back then.
Yeah.
And I think if you add all that up, I give them credit for giving them the opportunity, but probably could have handled it better. How he never made it back, never got that opportunity back, but they were learning too. The Steelers were learning as an organization, how do you deal with this? Okay, back then, hey, what do you want? We played a black quarterback. The mindset back then, nobody else was doing it, so we're doing it. Yeah, you know what I mean.
And JD and Mike, there were no professional interventions there.
No.
back
No.
then, the professional help you can get for mental health or other
No.
addictions, drug addictions, alcohol addictions. All these teams have counselors, uh, 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 mental health professionals on staff
Yeah.
that you can go to. None of that existed
Nope.
back then. But what Joe
However,
did,
he was 4-1-1. I don't understand why was he like a basket case after those 6 games, but he had a winning record.
yeah,
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure now. I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of pressure not on
absolutely.
him, just on the whole situation. And
yeah.
I'm not going to I'm not going to say the ownership didn't just what, we're going to just go here, because at the end of the day, when you weigh the criticism, they're going to criticize us more for benching this black quarterback, or they're going to criticize us more back in 1974, or they're going to criticize us more for not playing our first round pick. So
Yeah.
if you bench Gilliam, okay, yeah, maybe a couple people are going to say something, but basically, I guess the main thing was, and I think that's where Joe Green came into place, because that's when they were just beginning to have a lot of black players on the team. So I'm sure, at least knowing Darren Rooney the way I knew of how his reputation, I'm assuming he went to the players, because if the black players, if you lost them, you lost. Those teams weren't winning 4 Super Bowls, right? They weren't going to win all those Super Bowls. That was the core of their talent, the emerging black players they had on that team. So I don't know how many conversations went on, but Joe Green was the leader, and for the comments to come from him about they felt like, okay, we felt like he got his chance, he blew it type of thing. That's pretty much how Joe Green put it. And I hate being in situations where I don't really know.
Right.
All I can basically go off of is what I read or what I heard. And
And,
there's always
and
3 sides to every story.
and back then, the quarterback was calling his own plays.
Exactly.
And Joe wanted to throw that thing, man.
Yeah.
I think
He
it
was
was
an
one game
unbelievable
he
passer.
threw it like 50 times.
Threw the ball like
He threw
Penix.
it like
Threw the
300
ball like
and some
Penix.
yards. But they wanted to run the football.
Right.
So,
That may have been a problem. That may have been an
yeah.
issue.
So but the guy, I mean, Joe's legacy stands for itself. He proved what he could do. He's a legendary figure, and every black quarterback you see today stands on his shoulders, and all those brothers that have come before him. Man, this has been a great conversation. Time is getting away from us. Uh, uh, JD, your thoughts on the playoffs?
I like the Ravens. I think that, they've got the home field, so they're going to. I think the first playoff game is going to be big mentally for Lamar Jackson, just to cross that, because everybody say, well, he hasn't won it. So I think once he gets past that, I think he's going to be fine. Their defense is nasty, and if they're going to be playing at home and the weather's not going to be that great, unless something unforeseen happens, I see them making it to the Super Bowl. It'd be a fascinating matchup if they play the 49ers. I don't have any faith in the Cowboys getting there. I just think they're front runners. I've seen it for years. And of course, I'm still angry because they used to beat up on my Eagles back when I was a little kid. But I watched their game today. I just think they're the ultimate front runners. I just really do. I think they're incredibly talented, but get them away from Dallas on the road against a good opponent, and the cracks start to show. And I think they won a division. They're going to have their first home game, at home, playoff game. I want to see them on the road at San Francisco or Santa Clara, because that's who they're going to have to go through. And if they beat them out there, okay, we'll see. But I got to see that.
Well, I kind of had the same thing, but I'm also looking at are we going to have a situation in the playoffs where Purdy might have one of those games he did
He could.
Baltimore, or during that 3-game winning streak.
He could.
Or CMC or Debo, somebody gets banged up. So that would be the only way that could derail them. But of course, like I said, we saw the Eagles just fall off.
Oh, I don't know what happened to them.
Yeah, so
that's really inexplicable what's happened to that
exactly.
team.
And so Dallas, what do we really expect from them? They may be the most reliable team in the NFC, which is not saying much. because we don't know what Detroit's going to do once the lights come on.
No.
So yeah. So it seems like the Niners have a pretty easy road. Plus, having home field really does help. But I still think that team has something in them that it can implode.
I think it might have something to do with the coach. As great a play caller as he is, he's not the greatest in those late game situations, is he?
So
Right?
Atlanta.
It speaks for itself.
Shanahan, right?
Yeah.
It speaks for itself. His track record in those situations is not good.
I like what you said, JD. I think this first game for Baltimore is important just to get that out of the way. And it doesn't matter who comes out of the NFC. You could put together an NFC All-Star team. They ain't gonna beat Lamar Jackson in the Super Bowl, bro. You don't see him enough,
right?
To deal with that, brother. Hey, here in Detroit, the Lions, they're probably a year away. They got a lot of talent.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And they got a young brother that's orchestrating this by the name of Brad Holmes. You know, Dan Campbell, I'll give him props. He's done a good job. But the mastermind behind this is this guy, Brad Holmes, a brother from North Carolina A&T.
We don't hear anything about.
Well, you never hear about it.
Let me throw this in that some people might not think about. Think about this, a couple scenarios. So if Baltimore does play the Niners in the Super Bowl, it'll be just like how they did with Cincinnati. They had played them twice in the Super Bowl.
Right.
And then you might have two Harbaugh brothers as national champion and world champion.
Well, I was going to think about that.
I was going to get your thoughts on the national championship.
I don't have a problem with John Harbaugh. I don't have a problem with Jim Harbaugh. I'll leave it at that.
I think Jim Harbaugh will be gone after tomorrow night.
I agree.
Somebody's going to hire, and it's going to be interesting to see when these jobs come up, how many African Americans are going to land some of these positions that come open. But quickly, guys, your thoughts on the national championship game tomorrow?
Go ahead first, John.
I'm hoping, my heart says Washington, but I just think, I think Michigan is strong. I think they're going to really try to control the game on the ground, which I didn't understand why Texas didn't try to do, because they have a very good running game, and keep Mr. Penix off the field. I mean, to me, you're not going to stop him, but you can reduce and limit his, opportunities and bring more of a pass rush to make it, maybe put more pressure on him to where he's going to need to score almost every time he has the ball, because maybe won't have as many possessions. I would say 27-24 Michigan, even though I really want to see Washington win.
Michael.
All right. Well, of course, I've had the pleasure of seeing him live this year, and he put a even though the team didn't look as good against Stanford, but he put up some numbers. And then I saw Caleb last year come up here and play Stanford. So I've seen two really good quarterbacks.
He's seen some great quarterbacks,
right? And in the swan song year now. This is it. This is the last. They're a Big Ten team. They're the eve of being a Big Ten team in the championship. So I had a couple of our brothers, Ricky, say that they're going for Washington because they got a brother at quarterback. And I said, I know. Usually I go that way, but being a Midwest guy, I've always been a Big Ten guy, and all those Rose Bowls I watched over the years, and I'm saying, how do y'all look good all year? Do you go to the Rose Bowl and lose to a Pac-10 team back then? So, and then Harbaugh, I saw him, of course, when he played for the Bears, and then of course at Michigan. So I'm gonna say I'm going for Michigan. But I want to see Penix go off. I want to see Penix look really good. But if you could have the best of both, that's the way I would want Michigan to win. But Penix to be,
you want Penix to win, and you want Michigan to win.
I still can't get over the fact UCLA is going to be in the Big Ten. USC.
That's crazy.
I mean, it is all about Before we get out of here, JD, one more time, tell us about Tomlin's Soul of a Black Coach and where folks can get it.
Yeah, thank you for the plugs, guys. I really appreciate it. The book is called Tomlin, The Soul of a Football Coach. It's available everywhere. Everybody goes to Amazon, but Barnes and Noble online, Walmart, Target. You can go online and get it anywhere. Your local bookstores, depending on your market, you can get it. And like I said, I always push African American bookstores. They sell it too. They can get it. They can order it for you too. So I know they really, they're struggling with Amazon. Amazon is just dominating the marketplace, but you can order a book, most books from any bookseller online, and they can get it for you.
And to our viewers in the Detroit area, we have the Shrine of the Black Madonna bookstore here, which is a great place to pick up your literature on Black everything. So, hey, JD, man, we got to have you back, brother.
We got to talk Tendex later,
Yeah. We definitely. You know what? We're gonna lean on your NBA experience as probably around the trade deadline. Because as Mike and I were saying, these teams aren't really set until after the trade deadlines, and we know it's going to be some movement. And who knows? The Pistons might have won another game.
and hopefully Darvin's still coaching.
Hey, you know what? We can get 2 more guys suit up. We couldn't do no worse than what they're doing.
I thought the teams I covered were bad when, they were struggling. They rebuilding with Grant Hill, Lindsey Hunter, and Allen Houston. And those teams were championship caliber compared to what they put out there now. That's embarrassing. I mean, really, for the Detroit organization, that's embarrassing.
You know what people around here said? The Pistons have become the Lions.
It's just identity. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
Hey, we got to get out of here. Thank everybody for tuning in. For John G. Harris, my frat brother, Michael Roberson. Peace, everybody.
All right, guys.
See you later.
Peace.
All right, peace. Yo.
Thank you, JD.
Thank you, guys.